Hey guys, in today's video, we're actually gonna dive deep into dissecting a DNA test. So one that somebody's already done. It's actually my sample. So we'll be able to dive deep and take a look at what we need to really look after and why DNA tests are so great. It's one of those places in the market right now that's really hot, and companies are coming out with DNA test this and gut biome test that and epigenetic test this. And are they worth their grain of salt? How do you use them? And in what capacity do we do so? Before we move on though, make sure you like or subscribe to this video below, comment, because again, the more that you guys share it, the more you like it, the more you comment on it, the more you engage in it, the more people we can reach, and ultimately the bigger impact we can make. So if there's something you'd love to see, something you'd love to have me dive into, then be sure to, again, send me an email, send me a comment down below so that I can do that for you. Because again, we make content as these content producers for you, the audience, not for me, because again, I'm living it every day. So let's dive into this. Let's go. Let's get into the DNA testing. So guys, like I said, the biggest thing that we see all the time is that I get a DNA test and it's supposed to give me all the answers. But quite frankly, if you watch this video here that I did last week, it talks about how there needs to be a balance between your blood testing, your real-time data, and your DNA. Because what we're gonna see in today's DNA testing is that it actually looks into how we're genetically made up, what we're genetically predisposed to. It doesn't mean that we're not voodoo here. We're not in New Orleans and looking at all the crazy squares and crystals and telling the future in crystal balls. Really all we're doing is getting an understanding to what you're predisposed to being deficient in and what we need to be really aware of. So if we actually scroll down to what it actually means, in a DNA test, we're actually pulling a section of the gene, okay? So right in here, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the gene and the RS number. So the gene is pulled in BCM01. So if you were ever to look up what that gene does, we would understand that. The RS number is the sequence number, so the part of the gene that's pulled out and tested. And so this is the risk variant. So the risk variant is something that is been tested. We understand that is the one that has the issue. And you're always going to see two letters. So one letter is from your mom and one letter is from your dad. That obviously makes the conjoining in the cohelix or the double helix that creates up your genes. And then here's your variant. So does your variant match the risk variant? Will tell us whether we have an elevated, typical, or depressed or low risk. And then on the end, we're going to come up with our recommendations. So in this case, we've got right here on the left side, we've got our nutrient metabolism. And we need to make sure that when we're looking at our DNA test, that we're looking at really things that are accurate. So from a micronutrient metabolism rate, vitamin A, B12, C, D, E, folate, choline, calcium, iron, iron overload or low in iron status are all in part two. It's important that we understand what we're looking at here. And this isn't saying that you do actually have a micronutrient deficiency. It's saying that you are at risk of. It maybe runs in your family. It may have you genetically you're predisposed to this, which is always why it's key to have a blood test done in alignment with this so that we can say, hey, yes, you're right. I am low in vitamin D, and I do actually have an elevated risk for vitamin D deficiency. So always key to look at that as well. If you watch this video here that talked about choosing your vitamins, we did a deep dive. It actually had the fact that I was deficient in calcium, genetically predisposed, but in my blood test, because my diet, my nutrition, things that I'm supplementing right now are on point, and I don't have those issues. So really key to look at. Second here is food intolerances and sensitivities. Now, we know that our HRV is an understanding of how our body adapts to stress internally. Having a lactose intolerance, a gluten intolerance, a caffeine sensitivity are going to create inflammation in our gut, are going to create stress within our body. So if we're eating and we have stomach aches or we have headaches or we're scratching and itchy, we feel like our skin's crawling, indigestion, all of those things are signs of sensitivities, which are going to impact and be seen in our HRV. So it's good to know if we have an elevated or depressed or typical sensitivity to any one of these. And so we're going to start to become more acutely aware. Anytime I eat lactose, look out, for about 48 hours, I'm out of commission. I'm on the toilet, coming out of both ends, sitting there. It got a headache, no energy, foggy brain, you name it, I'm out of commission. And same thing from a caffeine. This is kind of interesting. I do have a little bit of a higher sensitivity to caffeine that I feel if I have caffeine in the middle of the afternoon, definitely not sleeping that night. So again, even though I don't have a predisposed sensitivity necessarily, I do notice impacts on my body just based on my lifestyle and habits as they come about. When we look at our cardiometabolic health, this tells us how these items actually impact us. So they give us recommendations, like we should limit our caffeine to 200 milligrams a day, which ironically, I have that, I should be doing that anyways, because going back to what I said about that sensitivity to it. Consume whole grain products as your grain products. Reason being, again, it's going to help me from a cardiometabolic standpoint. Sodium, I should limit my sodium intake. Omega-3s and 6s, I need to make sure that I'm getting those in. I have the typical ranges of what they say. And then physical activity, it allows me to know how much I should or should not be getting based upon what my body requires. And then when we get down into your weight management and body composition, these are how your body digests proteins, fats, carbohydrates. And obviously that's important because we need to know in what capacity are we utilizing the substrates that go into our body. And if we're doing high intensity exercise, low intensity exercise, what is going to be more beneficial to us? Is it going to be something that's more strength and power based? Is it going to be something that's more endurance based? Well, we're going to understand that and be able to prescribe it better, understanding how our body digests proteins, fats, carbohydrates, when it utilizes which substrate for energy. And then ultimately, this is more for awareness, is what do we typically go towards? I know for a fact I have a sugar or a sweet tooth. I love my lactose-free ice cream. I love my acai bowls. I love my granolas. I love chocolate. And so it's typical that I see that I have an elevated sugar preference. My fat taste, really, I could go without it. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it's so unique that that's what my DNA test is telling me because I feel that way all the time. I feel that, I'm more aware of it. And so it brings us back to that level of truly understanding what it is that we need to do. And then from a exercise standpoint, we now know what types of exercise we should be focused on. Strength and power, more endurance. How should we be recovering from that? Is it more focused on the recovery aspects, or can we really push in some other categories? And then we start to be able to make a true dietary intake based off of these recommendations. So we know what we're taking in on an estimated dietary intake per day. So this is what we're taking in on an estimate versus this is what we're being recommended by our DNA test. So we can see whether we're above or below. And again, going back to what should we supplement? What should we start eating? What should we be focused on? And then when we take a look at our carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, we can see where we should be for both a weight maintenance as well as a weight loss. And so it gives us this quality guidance, this information that is really, really imperative. That ultimately from here, what our team is able to do, and this is how it really should be done if you're building something that is actionable and truly tailored to you, is we're able to take this data we're seeing here on both the left and right side, and now we're able to create what we see here in this personalized meal plan, pardon me. And so when we pull this up, we now can take a look at, okay, this is what Monday's breakfast should look like. This is what Tuesday's breakfast should look like. This is what Wednesday's breakfast should look like. And all the other meals, your lunch, your dinners, and your snacks. And then they have paired with them all the recipes that go along with them so that we can start making them in an adequate and accurate way, make it simple on us. And lastly, at the very bottom, we have that grocery list so that we can make, again, our lives simple. But if we don't have this information to go off of, we're just guessing. And when we're guessing, That's when we feel good for a week. It's when we feel not so good for a week. It's when we get on a real good rhythm and then we fall off of it because maybe we go on vacation or we don't live at our house for maybe a weekend because we go on a road trip or we're traveling for work or whatever it may be. But if we have this information from this DNA test, we are able to create a personalized plan. We are able to get focused on that plan and create a strategy, a structure, and a priority of what we're doing. And that allows us to then perform in that plan with a routine, a rhythm, and ultimately it becomes instinct at the end of the day. So that's how we use a DNA test. That's how we can dissect it real deep and why it should always be paired with something else. And it's used as an avenue to get us further along to that level of success and achievement that we're looking for. So guys, if you love this video, like it, share it. Again, be sure to comment below so that I can answer any questions that you have. And like I said, be a resource for you, help you, be there for you on your journey, on your wellness journey, so that, again, it can be more purposeful, more profitable, and more productive in your life at the end of the day. Be sure to subscribe and go own it.